And just like that, we are in a whole new year. Welcome to 2026. I believe this is going to be a fantastic year for us as leaders. And of course, there's even more greater pressures on us, on all global leadership, really, every nation. There is so much more pressure on leaders, but I do believe that this year is going to be extraordinary for us because as a community, we have the tools, the resources, and everything you would need to truly come home to yourself. Now, we just finished Christmas, and I don't know about you, I love Christmas. My favorite part of Christmas is really, it's a bit silly, but that's my favorite part of Christmas, and that is wrapping presents for people. I spend hours on end throughout the whole year learning different techniques, different ways of wrapping, things in different nations. I think in Japan, they can just use one sheet of paper and one piece of, let's say, strip of sellotape, right, to wrap an entire present. So I just love to spend my time through the whole year learning different ways of wrapping presents just to make it really, really beautiful. I just love it. So I don't know about you, what has been your favorite part of Christmas? Now, when you put away the wrapping presents, cooking, all of those things, Christmas is usually about going home, coming home. Maybe you go to your parents. If you're married, you might go to your husband's, parents or your wife's parents and come back. Like you go around different family members. Or maybe you're the parent or you're the grandparent. And so the children, the grown-up children and their children or children's children and their families, doesn't matter, they all come to you. Either way, Christmas is usually about going home. Now, I have a question for us. So, if you went home or if others came to you, what did you notice? Usually, it's one of two things. Either you go home or you're in that home, mindset and you feel that you can relax because you're not at work, there's no pressures, there's like you can just breathe. It's almost like you can just kick off your shoes and put your pajamas on, right? Mindset, I'm talking about. You can just be yourself. Or the other side of the coin is you go home, or the kids come home, and you can tell it's like they're pretending there's somebody else underneath that person. Welcome to our first series of 2026, and that is coming home to yourself. And this week, I want us to have a conversation about who you are when you stop to perform. So, who are you when you stop to perform? Who are you when you stop to pause? Who are you when you're really with yourself? When you're really at home, relaxed with yourself? Who are you? So, as we step into this new year, I want to slow things right down with you. We're not rushing into goals, we're not rushing into plans, we're not rushing to become somebody new. So before you decide where you're going this year, 2026, I believe there's a more important question that you need to answer. And that question is it's not what I want to achieve. It's this very simple and yet profound question. Who am I when I stop performing? Because January is full of so much noise. I mean, I think gyms have their best months in January's. I'm very, very sure. Everyone possibly is telling you who you should be, whether from ads on social media or the tube station, billboards, doesn't matter. Everywhere there is that sense of, I've got to be something different. I've got to be, and of course, you don't want to stay stagnant as, the person you were in 2025. You want to grow. You want to identify your growth gaps and growing to becoming that leader. You want to increase your capacity. Yes, you want to be better than who you were last year. So I'm not saying completely that, just stay as you are. What I'm saying is that like you should not be who you're not meant to be. And there can also be, the noise, the mindset on, I've got to fix this, I've got to fix that, I've got to change that, I've got to add this to my life, all of those things. Well, sorry to disappoint you, but our series this month of January, coming home to self, is not about adding anything more. It's really all about coming home to yourself. Right. I want us to talk about our identity, not the version of you that is like being shaped by other people's expectations. It could even be your family's expectations, maybe your kids, your parents, your co-workers, not those, expectations. And definitely not the version of you that, has been in survival mode because I've got to adapt, I've got to pivot, I've got to do this. So I'm just in survival mode. Nope, not that version. And definitely also not the version of you that, tries to keep everybody comfortable, everybody happy. No, I want us to have a conversation about your real identity, the real you, the woman, the leader underneath all those roles, all those titles. Who is she? Underneath your responsibilities, underneath the performance that you're really, really good at, who is the real you? Why? Because many women I speak to are capable, they're accomplished, and they're outwardly successful. But yet, I tell you, boy, are they tired. They're often tired, not necessarily just physically, but just simply exhausted. Exhausted from living as somebody else that they're not. Exhausted from living sometimes, their parents' dreams and aspirations. Exhausted from living in this societal expectation. They just exhausted flat out. So today we're going to be exploring what it really means to stop performing and to start standing as the real you. So, key point though, being a great, performing in your role, your title, that's not survival strategy. That's not, it's just not, that's not your identity. Okay. So for every woman who perhaps you started to perform, started to put on this nuance or this facade early, I think it's fair to say you've probably learned how to read the room. You've learned, what is expected of you. You've learned perhaps how to be agreeable, how to be capable, how to be dependable, how to be strong. And really, all of these things possibly may have helped you to survive. But surviving doesn't mean that you're becoming the person that you were created and called to be, right? And when we carry that mindset of that performance mindset, what we're simply saying is that, hey, I'm going to be who you need me to be. But walking and living in your true God-given identity says that I know who I am. I know who I'm called to be. Because it's true, we were all created for good and greater works. And the Bible also says that God knew us before even we were born. He created us, He put us together. So the danger though is when, we're living from that performance mode and it goes unchecked, then it's like you can become really, really successful at living a life that doesn't actually belong to you. So, some, as always, we have some actionable challenges that we throw out there or throw to you. Number one is ask yourself honestly, where in my life am I still performing to stay accepted? Because I think it's true. One of the basic human needs is to feel accepted and not to feel rejected. But the truth is, you've got to know, like, where in your life are you performing? Just so you can stay accepted. Write it down. You don't need to justify it. You just need to name it. I just want you to name it. And from a practical perspective, you can look at fine. So, can you notice where maybe you feel relief? Perhaps when a meeting is cancelled, that's often a clue. It's a clue that, hey, you know what? I'm kind of like, performing here. And then another tip is for you to pay attention to perhaps do you say yes automatically, actually, without even maybe checking what existing responsibilities you have? That is another way of knowing that, hey, You know what? I'm living somebody else. And then listen to your own language. Do you use the word I should? I should be. I should be. That is a very, very big signal for you that actually you're performing and living somebody else's complete expectation. Okay. And then also a lot of leadership um contents that we tend to consume, whether it's podcast or social media, what it's usually always telling women to be more, you gotta be more confident. You gotta be more confident. But I've come to know that belonging comes long before confidence. Confidence doesn't grow in isolation. You cannot, build your confidence all by yourself. It grows when you know you belong. And often society expects us to mold a certain way or be a certain way in order to belong. No, you don't have to. You don't have to mold to be anything. Of course, you want to grow as a leader, but you've got to remember God says He created you. He created you. And the only thing you want to mold is to mold into who He created you to be, period. Nothing more, nothing less. And if you constantly have to, I feel like have to prove your worth, then I'm sorry to say, but your confidence will usually be fragile. um, when you belong somewhere in a community or wherever it is, it's basically you're telling us, hey, I don't need to earn my place. Like I belong, I'm part of that. And from that place, you'd see that your confidence becomes steady. And that's why I think, for so many women, sometimes like they might be confident, but then also feel very, very insecure because they don't feel like they belong. Okay. So that is where that's well, I would say the title or the mask I would call mastering to be competent without actually feeling like you belong. So how do you overcome that? You got to ask yourself, where am I trying to earn the permission to be myself? And remember, God said He created you. So who is He created to be? And you don't need anybody's permission to. You only have to ask God, who have you called me to be? Who have you created me to be? And help me to become this person, this woman, this leader that you've called me and created me to be. That should be your primary focus and nothing else. And then, notice, where do you shrink back? Where do you sometimes maybe over explain? Do you constantly wait for somebody else to kind of like validate you or affirm you before you actually take responsibility, maybe? I don't know. And then another great way to actually overcome that is choose one environment. Could be work, could be home, doesn't matter, where you're going to practice to show up as who you know God has called you to be. That's it. That's all you're going to do. And then I also want to bring this point to us like high functioning is really not the same as like your whole, right? That's a very, very important one. You can be highly functional and yet deeply disconnected at the same time on so many different levels. You can run a business, you can lead a team, you can even hold a family together and still feel very empty, right? So high functioning keep things going. But when you're whole, it allows you to live with integrity. It allows you to live from that place of your beloved identity. Um, and so for me, it's like, when a woman comes to me or a leader comes to me and say, like, Tina, I don't know why I feel like this, everything is fine, then it often means that, hey, everything is working, but I'm actually not okay. I'm not present. I'm not okay. How do you deal with that? Um, like look at it this way. What part of your life might be looking successful, but also at the same time feels a little bit hollow? Could be your parenting, could be your marriage, your relationship, doesn't matter. Just just pick one area and look which one area looks like everything is great, it's really successful, but actually, in actual fact, like there's a deep, deep, deep gap, hollowness there. So you want to separate like being productive from peppers. Check where do you feel like I'm just doing this, like it's like driving home. You can literally get in the car and because we're creatures of habit, so we just take the same road, do the same things. Where are you just monotonous in what you're doing rather than actually being actively engaged? And also, you have to allow yourself to perhaps name your dissatisfaction without like, self-condemnation or self-shaming or like anything that condemns you yourself is just not good. It's not godly. It's not love. And that's not okay. It's not acceptable. Okay. So one other thing that's really important is whenever we're putting on these masks of, hey, look at me, I belong, look at me, this, it has a cost. It could be your strength, it could be your, these masks could be, look at me, like I'm really strong, I'm a strong leader, or I'm competent, or I have it all together. Well, in the short term, yes, they might protect you, they might make everything look like it's okay, but in the long run, it's actually going to drain you, if not already draining you, right? And I have also come to know that it creates huge emotion fatigue. It can really impact and limit your ability to be like intimate, like really be honest with your children, with your, in your relationships, in your marriage, with your family, with the people you lead. You just become shallow, right? And it just narrows your perspective as a leader. So, what you need is to be honest with yourself. So, identify, hey, is there an area that I know I've been wearing a mask that it's like that I'm literally tired of this. So just one area, and then try telling the truth of, hey, this is, and I don't mean your truth. I mean the truth of who God says you are without like shouting it from the rooftops. You've got to be able to say it to yourself enough times for your heart, your spirit, your mind, your body, your soul, everything to actually believe it and come into agreement with that. Okay. And then maybe this is also a good one. Allow people that, you can trust. Kind of let them see you from, your place of vulnerability and give you valuable feedback on how to pull yourself together without needing, those masks. Yeah. And then finally, coming home to self is actually the greatest act of leadership. Um, that you can ever do. And this is the part where that I want you to hear very, very clearly. Coming home to self is not about being indulgent. It's actually a responsibility because leaders who like disconnected from themselves, eventually you would be leading from fear, you'd be leading from control, you'd be leading from exhaustion. But leadership begins with being honest first with yourself, because the truth is, if you can't be honest with yourself, I'm so sorry, but you're going to be lying to everybody else because you deserve honesty, and that starts with you. So when you stop performing, you kind of like stop overreacting. And when you stop reacting, you start to choose well. You start to have, the clarity it takes to make better decisions. And that's where your leadership can really become solid. So ask yourself this question and then sit with it. If you're walking with your dog, or you're on the treadmill exercising whilst listening to this, then I want you to come back to this podcast. And if there's one thing you take away from today's episode, it's this. Ask yourself this question: who am I becoming through the way I'm currently living? Right. So this question, I know it's a tough one, but it's important. And you have to ask yourself at different touch points in life. Who am I becoming through the way I'm currently living? Are you actually becoming everything you're called to be by the way you're living right now? If not, you know the answer. So begin this year with that reflection, not just rushing into, I've got to do this, I've got to achieve this goal. No, no, no. Begin with that reflection. Who am I becoming through the way I'm currently living? And then give yourself that permission to actually pause, to sit and answer this question honestly, and then you can begin to plan, right? So don't be forced to feel like I've got to have some appearance of something you're not. No, you want to know Who are you becoming through the way you're currently living? So if we bring everything together, 2026, definitely January 2026, you don't need to reinvent yourself. You don't need a new personality. You don't need to become louder, tougher, different. You just need to be honest with yourself. Performance may have helped you to survive, but it's your true God-given identity that will sustain you in the long run. And coming home to yourself is not about doing less, but it's all about living truer to the identity of who God says you are. So here's what I'd love for you to do this week. One is take a quiet moment. No phone, no, iPad, nothing digital, just and no planning. Just sit with yourself and ask yourself, where have you performing instead of actually being real? And who are you becoming? Or look back on 2025. Who did you become because of the way you're currently living? And then look at the year ahead. Okay, who will I continue to become if I continue to live the way I'm living now? Answer that question in that quiet moment when you take. And if this episode resonates with you, then share with another woman who also may be tired of pretending. And if you're definitely looking for a place where you don't have to perform to belong, then I want to invite you to join us at Nations of Women. That's a community where, it's a community and the tribe you've always been looking for, because with Nations of Women, you already belong. So, next, we're going to talk about what it actually takes to grow into who you're called to be without rejecting yourself in the process. So, until then, I wish you stay grounded, stay honest, and if there's one thing you do, beginning of this year, 2025, it should be this. You should keep coming home to yourself. God bless, and once again, a happy new year.